Blockchain Show is a podcast that demystifies cryptocurrencies and distributed ledger technology.
Hello! Hey, it's Ian here from the Blockchain Show, and we've got another great episode. Thank you so much for downloading. Hopefully you listened to last week's very interesting episode, and now we've got something completely different. Today, we've got David and Bryant, who are going to be speaking about guns. Yep, literally guns. This is a company called GunClear. I'm going to hand you over to David. So David, welcome.
Thank you very much. So we are building GunClear. It's a digital solution. There's no actual guns until the users put them on there. We're building this product for gun owners to manage their personal ownership history, the data created from transactions. Currently, that data is stored on paper, and it's not digitized. You hear people talk about a registry. We're not a registry. We're a data sovereign store of data for firearm compliance data. And that's on a private and secure ledger where transactions are personally encrypted but validated by the network using zero-knowledge proofs.
So that sounds very interesting, and it's always good to know where guns are and things. Why would I want to do that? Why would I want to be registering my firearms with you?
Well, you wouldn't be registering your firearms with us. What you would be doing is digitizing the ownership history. It proves the provenance of the gun, and it proves when you actually bought the gun or sold it. Currently, when it's done on a piece of paper, if you're like me, you have no idea where that piece of paper is. Now, if you're a super collector, defined as someone with over 12 guns, and we found out there's a lot of people with hundreds of guns, keeping track of that paper becomes impossible. Yet, privacy concerns keep people from storing data in a database or a registry. That's why GunClear, and that's why it wasn't possible before blockchain.
Fantastic. So this is a bit like Carfax for guns.
We think it eventually will be exactly like Carfax for guns, except you don't see the whole history. So you can trust the math and trust the zero knowledge proof, but you don't have to see who purchased the gun first and second and third. Guns have a useful life of up to 100 years. So they could have numerous owners. We only want you to be able to see who you bought it from and who you sold it to, and be able to prove that at any point in time.
Do you think this is going to help the value of guns?
Yes, I think that is the human and cultural change that our DApp will attempt to do, is sort of allow people to say, I have faith in the history of that gun. I don't believe it was used in a crime. It's been owned outright and passed along. Immediately it won't change the value. Over time, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to change the gun buying culture to value knowing where the gun came from. When you look at two guns at a gun show, for instance, they look exactly the same. One could be stolen, used in crimes. The other one could have been owned by one person and never shot. There's no way to tell the difference today. And with GunClear, we think we can get there.
That's a great idea. So you can, so you go to a gun show, there's two guns, you can look it up. How would I look it up at a gun show? Does it go by serial number?
Brian, you want to answer that?
Yeah, I'll take that. So the individual will have this kind of self-sovereign history, and that history is provably valid all the way back up the chain of ownership. However, that history is only shared within the owners of that firearm through the chain. So it's not shared with any other party besides anyone who's ever owned that firearm, and it ends when they sell it or give it to someone else. I kind of like to describe the mechanism as like a two-factor authentication for a firearm. You have this kind of digital form of identification that you own it, and then you have the real thing in front of your face, and that's the physical aspect of two-factor authentication.
I see. I understand. This sounds really good for guns, but also this sounds like it could be used for more than just guns. This could be very useful for selling anything.
Well, I mean, there's I think it can be useful as a store of provenance or a store of history, especially when privacy is your core concern. In this particular case, privacy is a requirement. You cannot have a digital registry of firearms, right? So you have to create the separation between the account owner, the private wallet, and obscure and hide those things. So we do that. The key innovation that Bryant really got now can be extended beyond the required, right, with a gun owner, into areas where it becomes extremely beneficial to keep some set of data completely private and to yourself. So you don't have snooping eyes watching your documents.
Yeah, and I'm thinking antiques. I'm thinking that there's so many areas where this could be useful. And I suppose that the history of a gun could be tracked by yourselves, but not by the actual end user. So if the police wanted to look into guns, which have been found somewhere or something, but then they could trace the history by going through yourselves.
So no, we're actually surveillance resistant. That's what I mean by the privacy. What they can do is see if there is a token on the chain through a query, but they're not able to pair it up to the current owner. Now, they already have tools for tracking firearms, and they're on paper and they're manual. So a serial number can be attributed to the dealer that sold the gun after the manufacturer. And then if it was quote unquote born GunClear, so the manufacturer uploaded it on the chain, they would then be able to manually follow it, and people would be able to prove that they no longer own that gun. If it was, say, it was involved in a crime, I don't own it. And we have numerous use cases where we've discovered people have been contacted by the police in a situation where they either bought a gun that was, illegally involved in a number of illegal activities, or that they have sold a gun and subsequently that gun was used in illegal activities, and they had no way to prove that they had sold it. And that is the sort of situation we're trying to take care of. So we're trying to protect the gun owner from surveillance, but also protect them to keep a record that is time-stamped, immutable, those sort of things, and allows them to help prove where the gun went after they had it.
And in terms of data that the GunClear platform will know about, so the data that we'll know about, it's basically no different than what is already available today. All we're doing is helping to digitize that paper record. Today, only the owners themselves have those paper records. They don't share them with law enforcement or with anyone else. And this would be the same system, except for now it's digital. So if it were involved in a crime and I was like, hey, I used to own that, I decide I want to share it with the authorities to help them track down where this come from. Now we know that this was indeed in the chain of provenance, and we can show the next person, the next person, the next person. That's only if a current owner or someone along the chain wants to aid in that investigation.
And furthermore, there's hundreds of thousands of guns a year that are stolen that go unreported. Our system will allow you to anonymously, flag that firearm.
That sounds like a good plan. That does sound good. So you're basically giving records assigned to each gun. So I would imagine that this would be something which any gun shop would want to offer as a service to add the records for each gun that's sold. That
is definitely the business model. I think, having a set of gun dealership partners, FFL dealers, federal firearms licensed dealers, as partners in this, manufacturers as well, right? As a service, it has the potential to add value beyond the cost of the service. So that means we'll be able to share in that with the dealers.
I see. And how much does the service cost? How is it financed?
So we're looking at we're pre-release, but the price range that we're looking at is $20 to $30 per person. And the first set of, or not per person, sorry, per firearm, as it creates the token and is minted. But there would be other services available as well to be able to manage your tokens. And I think long term, you're looking at probably a wholesale type model where you're selling to, let's say, Sig Sauer, right? And you sell them 500,000 tokens on January 1st of the year. And their model's significantly cheaper. When there's a transfer, you have an activity there, right, that you can capture some value from as well.
Absolutely. And I suppose once you know about those owners, you could then offer them additional services, as you say, for their gun, etc.
But you don't know them, right? But yeah, so it's not as targeted as a Facebook or a Google or these sort of data harvesting type operations. But what it is it's a self-selection into an application that allows you to take the value that you need, right? And at the same time, the tokenization, you can tokenize the firearm and keep almost all of that data completely anonymous and to yourself. Rarely do you see something that allows you to do that, right?
For the individual, you can kind of think about it like a membership card. Like when you apply to be a part of the NRA, you get an NRA membership card, and that gives you, certain services that the NRA offers, and newsletter and all that kind of stuff. Whatever. GunClear would be fairly similar to that model, except for your membership card would be good for exchanging firearms in this digital way, and each transfer being provenly shown back to the origin of where it was first added to the network. And if that origin was a manufacturer, then you have a completely white gun all the way from the origin.
In England, there is a register for guns. So if you want a gun, you have to pass a test and register that firearm. It must be registered. Like if you're a farmer or you've got a legitimate right to have a gun. The underground will always have guns, and there we go. You can't really legislate, but it is a difficult one, and it's interesting watching people in America that it's their right to have a gun, and they don't need to tell anybody they've got a gun, and everybody naturally assumes everybody else has got a gun. So it's a different concept, but I don't feel unsafe not having a gun because everybody assumes you've got a gun anyway. So it's very, very interesting. And this is why I like projects such as this, where we've got more visibility over things. We've got more provenance. And that's what I'm thinking about this solution. It's a great solution, but this could scale out to antiques and many, many other pieces of property which we own. And that's why I like it.
I mean, think about your DNA, right? Like people are giving their DNA away to 23andMe. As this scales up, I don't know that this isn't a way that you can capture that DNA and reprove it at a later time. I don't know the answer yet. I haven't figured out the private key management issues. But there's a lot of different things that Bryant's work is going to open up and allow other people, not just us, to think about how do we do this, right? And when we first started talking about it, we had no idea how we were going to even begin to build this sort of thing. And now we've done the proof of concept work. We've done the tests on the research on zero knowledge proofs to see, can we hide, can we shield this data? And it's quite exciting when you start to think about like getting Facebook out of your life, right? I mean, getting Google a little bit out of your life, creating a digital space where you're not being surveilled. That has a lot of application.
And I wasn't necessarily thinking as high level as DNA, but I was thinking about, like a house or a car deed. Anything that you have that needs to be managed like that, you have to basically like share with the government and all this kind of stuff. That's an infrastructure cost on the government as well. Think about the DMV. Everyone hates the DMV, but if there were a way for all car owners to kind of self-manage their own registration without the DMV being involved, that's kind of interesting.
Exactly. And it really, really does annoy me that like I go to a doctor's office and I've got to fill in a paper form, and then I give that paper form to somebody and they've got to type that in. And it's interesting. I'm doing some analytics work, and it's coming down to looking at people's signatures to work out what their name is. It's absolutely crazy in this day and age that we're not using what we've got. And I think that is where the likes of Apple and other forward-thinking organizations such as IBM will just bring out a system and it will do away with it all, because suddenly your records will be mostly on your iPhone. Your phone will be your device which identifies you with a few other factor authentication, and they've got all this information, especially with Apple Health, etc. I think that will be it. And the problem of users and duplicate names, unique identifiers, will be solved through that phone device.
With that convenience, though, becomes the problem of like who's the data being shared with? Is it being used to kind of surveil us? And a lot of people like to point to what's happening in China as an interesting example with the social credit system. What most people don't like to think about is that that kind of system is just as possible in America or any other Western world. Like the amount of data that Facebook and Google and all these other companies have on us is the same type of data that Chinese, companies are collecting from their users. The only difference is that right now they're making money from ads. And as soon as that business model goes away, where do they go next?
Absolutely. And this is where it gets very dangerous territory in regards to, well, we haven't got privacy anymore. I know already, I know people, very intelligent people who have started talking with their wife about something, and then suddenly the next advert they see on their phone is still what they're talking about. What we've done as a society is we've actually paid for the tracking devices. We've paid for them and we love them. And we think they're wonderful. And we buy little cases for them. We buy new charging leads for them. And we think they're great. But actually, those devices are tracking us. They're tracking what we do. It's a good thing and a bad thing. And I think the best way to put it is, if you're worried about it, then what are you doing wrong? But again, it is wrong. It's wrong. It's wrong that they're so pervasive into society. I think there's going to be a new hippie commune startup, and it's going to have thousands of people going there just to get off the grid.
Yeah, it's called Burning Man.
That's very true. I've always wanted to go.
I mean, I really do think the idea of the company is to create a spark by creating a private place in the digital world. Like, just a real private place with encryption that allows people, to begin to save those documents free from surveillance. And we think if we have this little place that we create for people, that they'll start to value privacy more as well. If you go back to that first episode that I was on, in episode 9, we were talking, it was funny, I listened to it again recently, and we were talking about the potential for good or evil with blockchain at one point. And, you really need to find a way to keep some things private, right? Like, and that's what we're dedicated to.
Yeah, man, I was actually thinking about that part in particular, and I was going to kind of follow up with you the direction that the whole blockchain space has taken. Do you think we're kind of better or worse since then? Well,
I mean, I think we're learning, and that it's not going to be perfect. But I think I still think it's our best hope to make the world better in the digital future, and make humans more accountable to each other and build community. and have these positive effects, right? And you just look at what we're trying to do with GunClear, and you say, well, a year and a half ago, everybody thought we were absolutely insane when we started looking at it. And now we talk to people, that own lots of guns, right? And they're like, I need this sort of service. It really adds value to what I'm doing. There's always some people that don't want any, digitization at all. But, for the most part, we've become relatively incapable of living in a physical world, right? Like keeping track of papers and stuff. So I think the numbers of people that we will help and provide an actual service through trying to eliminate stolen guns from the marketplace. When you cross those two things over, there's a huge value add there, in my opinion.
And I kind of want to key off something there too. You talked about community, and I think one of the major things that clicked for me when I first started learning about this technology was the idea of like building communities. One of the first dApps that I used on Ethereum was Aragon, which allows you to kind of self-organize your own personal organization, put people in as how you know, and like vote on things. And it's really neat. It's probably far off in the future, but it's getting here really fast. And maybe I think that's a big part of what we're trying to do with GunClear is to try to build a community that's better connected in the gun realm, in the realm of gun owners. And I think that self-regulation of that community is a way better approach to helping to solve some of the problems that do exist than it is from a top-down perspective of like forcing regulation on these people.
I think that's right. I think it's an optional thing, and once it really takes off, then we could, as a society, work on it becoming law that you must register these things. Well, not register, but have them accounted for, shall we say, using the correct terminology with your system. So before I ask about where the blockchain comes in and how you got onto that, I'm very interested about your marketing strategy.
When we first start testing, we're looking at what are called Type 3 firearms, and those are machine guns, sawed off. They require special licenses, silencers, suppressors, that sort of thing, because those are public records. The ATF has a database of those already. So if we test with that and then look to add, my marketing strategy has been about high dollar value custom firearms first. Things over $2,000, $3,000, $5,000, $10,000, because creating that chain of custody or chain of provenance is immediately valuable. Another go-to-market group are people like shooting clubs and things of that nature, where people are traveling to competitions quite a bit because of the travel and the unique type firearms that they have to travel with, et cetera. Having easy record keeping becomes real important. So, they travel around right now with binders full of paper, right? We don't think that will eliminate the binders for a period of time, but we think it'll be much easier to use our service than it is to keep binder, ready for any sort of situation.
That sounds good. And I don't know whether this fits in your model, but you could become the Dollar Shave Club of ammunition. Every Friday, new ammunition turns up for your gun.
Well, I haven't heard that one yet, but that isn't a bad idea because you got the recurring revenue model, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
No, I think the marketplace, at one point, Carfax used the marketing line, "Show me the Carfax," right? What you don't see a Carfax now. It's a ubiquitous service, right? It's running in the background. We think that this service will be valuable to dealers because they can come back into the secondary sales market, right? So right now, a gun dealer can only sell a gun that they purchase from the manufacturer because of reputational risk. So if they sell a gun to you, Ian, right, and then they're able to buy it back from you because you still have the token, and then they can be comfortable. There's a level of comfort there to get into that market. And we think that those are our partners, right? So like our future partners over the next year are manufacturers and gun dealers, because we're probably going to add significant margin to their business.
Absolutely, because we all want the latest and greatest, and our fear of missing out and not playing with the latest and greatest, especially when we're talking about toys, which guns are sort of recreational devices in some instances and competitions, etc. Then yeah, that does make a lot of sense. And I'm with that, you could share the subscription fee with the dealer and who's buying it, so it's cheaper, but the dealer then knows more about the customer. Yeah. Yep.
And the manufacturer can have applications where certain keys are able to, communicate with the manufacturer. The possibilities are endless if you can build the system, right? And I think privacy being the key, and that always being first and foremost, that security and privacy is what drives us. But as we perfect or improve the technology significantly, I think our options begin to open up greatly.
Massively. So you've got this great idea. What came first, this idea or the idea of using a blockchain? Take us through how you came about creating this solution.
The idea came first. A couple of my other co-founders were really interested in the idea of provenance and how is it going to work on blockchain, especially when you start to think about numbers of transactions and scalability of Ethereum. When we first met Bryant, we really didn't know how to build it or what we were going to do. I mean, I think it was 7 months of knowing Bryant and talking to him in different interactions. And then CryptoKitties came along, and this non-fungible token came along, and, Zcash was doing things, and the idea of zero-knowledge proofs were floating around out there. And at some point, we had 4 or 5 of us that, really sort of said, well, this is how you could do guns with blockchain. Because it can't be a track and trace. It can't be a registry. It can't be a database. But it could be a sovereign store of data that the customer themselves holds. And they're the ones that have it, right? And we just started building. What was that, Bryant? 6 months ago, 7 months ago?
I think even earlier than that. Or I think like August. So I guess that's about 6 months.
Guys, I'm kind of understanding now how the token works. Could you maybe explain a little bit more? Is there mining involved at all?
So that's kind of the beauty about having a partner like gun resellers and the like. They have a natural interest in not only being a deep partner with us, but also they have an interest in running the nodes themselves, because the nodes are going to be collecting all the transactions from the network. So if you have a node in your store, you're able to get those transactions ahead of the line, and you'll get your customers to kind of interact faster with the network. So it might even drive kind of external people to come to the gun store in order to interact with GunClear in order to trade guns, even secondhand, because the nodes themselves will be inside these gun stores. And that was kind of important for us in terms of the architecture of the network, because if we're running all the nodes and we're doing all the things relating to onboarding and offboarding and identity and all this stuff, that gets to be a lot of control in our hands. So by working with resellers that care more about the market themselves and have reputation in the market themselves, they have a natural inclination to run some of these devices, and there won't be a fee or anything on the second layer network because of that.
That's really brilliant, man. Cool. I like that.
Thank you.
It really is a really good solution and a great use of the blockchain. So how can our wonderful listeners get involved with this?
You can visit gunclear.io, follow us on Twitter at GunClear, sign up to be a beta user if you feel comfortable, or just sign up to get more information. I think, because we don't have a token, there's no, we have a non-fungible token. There's no ICO type thing or any of those things. We're doing a traditional equity fundraising. And, the difference is it's most likely not a traditional tech player, right? Because once you put the word gun in there, it becomes gun and blockchain, right? It becomes almost difficult for a large VC to play in it. So I think realistically, we want to try to identify the people interested in the product, interested in supporting the product and learning more, and starting to get their feedback as we develop over the next 12 months, and get them on the system and see what we can do to improve.
Fabulous.
Yeah, and if there's anything I've kind of learned from watching the blockchain space is that having a bunch of passionate supporters is really what buoys these projects.
Massively. I think that the one common thing over the last few years of doing this is that if you're going to invest in anything to do with crypto, invest in something you believe in or you're interested in, because then you know something about it. And if you are going to support someone, then support something you do know a bit about or you want to know more about, because the communities that are building up around these different cryptocurrencies are very interesting, because it's bringing people together in a different way, mainly because people want to make money and they're interested in X, Y, Z or Z for our English viewers. Listeners, what am I saying? Gosh, I'm losing my mind. I'm already thinking I'm on TV. There we go. I've got ideas above my station. But yes, I think that is the key thing. And so, listeners, if you have got any feedback or any questions, then get in touch. Get in touch with GunClear and find out what you need to know, because I've been chatting to these guys before the podcast and they really, really do want feedback, any ideas. And when you do hear about Ammo Shave Club, then I'm expecting my check for 10%.
Sure thing.
Absolutely. Why not get involved with that? That'll be a great idea. Fabulous.
I'm not sure Ammo Shave Club is the. I don't think you want to shave from ammunition.
Like Rambo.
One of the things, Ian and Ethan, one of the funny things is all of us have owned guns. All of us shoot guns. It's part of our, part of our belief that we should be doing the work to make sure stolen guns aren't being traded, right? Everyone always says the answer to a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun, but also, keeping stolen guns out of people's hands is an important thing. So, I really want to stress that gun owners and gun users need to be the people doing that.
And it's a complex problem, and I think really at the end of the day, it's a complex solution to that problem, and we need a lot of tools that help us approach the problem that protect people from the abuses of those.
Absolutely, and yeah, as long as there's a system, people will try and abuse it. And just to give you an idea, I'm not anti-guns. I've shot a few guns in Poland. I was incredibly hungover. And then 2 weeks after meeting my current girlfriend, I went with her to meet her father, and within half an hour of meeting him, we were out the back of his barn shooting guns at things, much to the amusement of the rest of the family, who were saying comments like, "Hey, the guy with the funny accent has even missed the ground," in an American accent, which was quite amusing.
It's fun to go and shoot guns. It's fun to go out to the range. That is a fun activity, and it shouldn't be vilified. But we should also take every step possible to keep stolen guns out of commerce. That it's the two things are not they're not against each other. Yeah, they're not exclusive. Thank you, Brian.
Yeah, and it's true. We all own weapons, and the biggest weapon we all own is a car, and people seem to forget that. A frying pan, and especially the cast iron thing that I don't know much about how kitchens work, but the cast iron frying pan is very heavy when I'm washing it up. That's a weapon. There are weapons all around us, some designed to kill, some not designed to kill. But yeah, if you want to hurt somebody, you don't need to have a gun. It's very easy to do that. So everybody will find a way, and guns aren't necessarily bad. In the right hands, as you said, it's a deterrent. But anyway, we're getting onto different subjects. Guys, it's been very interesting, and we definitely need to speak to you very soon. Let us know when you've got something to announce, and we get you back and talk about this, because I think hopefully this is going to get some feedback. You know where the guys are, GunClear. You know where we are. Send us feedback. Tweet us. Look on Facebook, and look at the website. Thank you very much, Brian and David. I wish you much success.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care, guys.
Thanks, Ian. Thanks, Ethan.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys. Adios.